It seems you've explored all possible options, haven't you? He has tried to talk, negotiate, forgive, and forget. You've tried to adapt, to mold yourself, hoping that maybe it could change reality. But nothing has changed, because dealing with someone whose heart is dominated by narcissism is like facing an invisible enemy in a silent war. How many sleepless nights have you spent wondering if God really saw all this? If He understood the pain that burned silently in your chest? I want you to know something right now. God not only sees what you face, but He also understands exactly what it's like to be caught up in this emotional and spiritual battle. You feel like you're living a constant struggle to keep your identity intact, your self-esteem alive, in the face of sharp criticism, disguised manipulations, and lies that never seem to end. Perhaps you have asked yourself countless times, is God here with me? Does He know how much it hurts to be treated as if He had no value? The answer is simple but powerful. Yes, God knows. He is not indifferent to the suffering you face. Every tear that falls silently is heard by Him. Every heavy sigh echoes directly in the heart of a God who promises not only to be present, but to act powerfully in defense of those who sincerely seek Him. He knows every detail of this invisible conflict that no one else seems to understand. He understands the weight you carry in secret, the pain you disguise with a smile, trying to survive another day under the emotional domination of someone who is never satisfied. There was a woman who also thought she was completely alone, trapped in a destructive relationship with someone whose selfishness robbed her of her joy every day. She spent years believing that her situation would never change, but the moment she thought about giving it all up, something changed deep inside her. She came to understand that God had never overlooked her battle. He had witnessed every moment of pain and every unsuccessful attempt to understand. The very moment she understood this, reality slowly began to transform. She realized that she was not alone, that the liberation was already prepared. That same transformation is available for you today. God wants you to know clearly you are not fighting alone in this war against the pain and emotional abuse of narcissism. He knows the exact way out of this emotional prison and is about to reveal how you can achieve that liberation. If you feel a flame burning in your heart right now, it is no accident, because God is about to reveal how He ended this narcissist's control over you. Get ready, because your liberation begins right here and now. Often when we discuss narcissism, we immediately think of psychology, personality traits, or mental problems. But I want you to realize something deeper. This battle you face goes beyond the mental or emotional sphere. It is a real and intense spiritual struggle. Narcissism, at its core, reflects a spiritual distortion, an unbridled desire for power and control over another person, and this doesn't happen by accident. There are spiritual forces involved behind this subtle and constant manipulation that you face on a daily basis. A narcissist acts like a silent invader, one who does not attack directly but gradually undermines your inner strength, reducing your ability to believe in yourself. Imagine that your mind and heart are like a garden. When well cared for, they bloom with joy, peace, and hope. But the narcissist is like a weed, which enters discreetly without you noticing, sucking life out of everything around you, slowly destroying the beauty and vitality that God has planted within you. This spiritual strategy is so subtle that victims often don't realize it until they are deeply wounded, worn down by the constant sense of insufficiency and inadequacy. Have you ever noticed how, when dealing with a narcissist, it seems like it's never enough? Whatever his effort, he always finds a flaw, something that could have been better, a small imperfection. This occurrence isn't just coincidence or a common emotional issue. It is part of a spiritual strategy to weaken you from within, away from the truth and identity that God has given you. The narcissist knows how to distort reality in such a way that you begin to doubt everything, including your own emotional and spiritual sanity. Like a distorted mirror, it reflects a false image of who you are, trying to convince you that your identity is fragile and your self-esteem is conditional on your approval. Spiritually, this functions as an invisible prison, created precisely to prevent you from seeing your true strength in God, your true spiritual identity. But here is the key to understanding the spiritual depth of this struggle. The enemy behind this destructive behavior is not the narcissist himself, but the spiritual force that influences and manipulates him, using him as an instrument to attack his trust in God and himself. The Apostle Paul has already cautioned us that we are not fighting against physical enemies, but rather against unseen spiritual forces that seek to rob us of our joy, peace, and purpose. The good news is that God is not oblivious to this suffering. He clearly sees every spiritual movement behind the narcissist's manipulative words and attitudes. God understands the intensity of this battle and has already provided a powerful spiritual outlet for you. By understanding that the war you face is first and foremost spiritual, you can begin to fight with effective weapons that God Himself has placed in your hands, ready to completely free you from this emotional and spiritual manipulation. You will learn how to use these weapons and achieve God's victory. Before we continue, write in the comments, God has already determined the end of the narcissist's dominance over my life. Also, share this video to reach more people who need this powerful message. God perceives that which you feel that no one else understands. He sees clearly every injustice, every manipulation, and every emotional abuse committed in secret by narcissistic people. Even when everyone around you seems indifferent or unable to notice, God is fully aware of the internal battles you face daily. Nothing escapes His watchful, compassionate gaze. No silent tears, no suffering that you carefully hide behind a smile. Often, narcissistic people operate in such subtle ways that their actions appear normal in the eyes of others. Gradually, they manage to make you doubt yourself, question your sanity, and question your value as a person. They are experts in creating false realities, distorting the truth, and projecting an image on you that is not yours. When these silent manipulations are intense, you may feel invisible, as if no one can validate your pain or see your emotional weight. But God sees the truth exactly as it is. He recognizes every disingenuous word, every attitude disguised as affection or concern that the narcissist uses to control or weaken you emotionally. No mask, lie, or attempt at manipulation is capable of deceiving the one who knows everything. Throughout the Bible, we find countless examples of how God acts on behalf of those who are secretly wronged. When Joseph fell victim to the envy and manipulation of his brothers, it seemed that no one else could help him. However, God had already clearly decided the outcome of that story. In the same way, David, unjustly persecuted by Saul, experienced firsthand what it means to be unfairly attacked and persecuted by someone who acts out of selfish motives. However, at the right time, God intervened, bringing out the whole truth and establishing justice. These stories reveal a clear divine pattern. God never ignores or overlooks the injustices committed against those who trust in Him. He acts quietly but decisively, bringing clarity, justice, and deliverance in the midst of emotional and spiritual suffering. The central message I want you to keep is simple, yet transformative. God is already at work in your life, even if you don't realize it clearly yet. He is not blind to the narcissist's suffering. Every tear, every pain, and every internal struggle you face goes before God's watchful eyes. Open your heart to perceive these subtle signs of divine presence and action around you. The silent suffering caused by the narcissist has an expiration date determined by God. you can fully trust that God has already begun to reveal justice and deliverance in your life. You may not realize it, but divine justice is already quietly at work in your life, opening paths that you still cannot see clearly. We are not talking here about something distant, intangible, or restricted only to the ancient accounts of the Bible, but about clear and concrete signs present in your daily life. Small, everyday details reveal that God has never abandoned or forgotten you, particularly in your battle against the toxic influence of narcissists. Often, you expect divine justice to come in the form of something grand or dramatic. However, God often prefers to act subtly, like a gentle breeze that brings relief at the exact moment you need it most. Have you ever been surprised by an unexpected sense of peace in the midst of chaos, right after a difficult confrontation with a narcissist? Or perhaps he felt a sudden strength, a courage that seemed impossible minutes ago, just as he was about to give up. These are clear examples of how God manifests himself to defend your soul and restore your dignity. Another important sign of divine justice occurs when you begin to notice small truths coming to light. Perhaps you have noticed that little by little, those lies carefully assembled by the narcissist begin to crumble before your eyes. Situations that once seemed unsolvable or unfair suddenly gain clarity, and you realize that you weren't wrong, that your pain was always legitimate, and that your perception of reality wasn't a figment of your imagination. This is no accident. It is God showing you little by little that he has always been attentive, never allowing the lie to stand forever. Another everyday sign of divine justice is the inner strengthening that happens almost without you realizing it. You begin to notice that what once deeply shook your emotions no longer has the same strength. Words that were capable of destroying your self-esteem now pass you by without causing damage. This emotional resilience does not arise by chance. It is a direct action of God strengthening your identity, allowing you to face any future attempts at manipulation. It is also common for God to manifest his justice by bringing the right people into his life at exactly the right time. Suddenly, you receive unexpected support from friends, family, or even strangers who understand exactly what you're going through. People arrive at the perfect time, offering words of comfort, wisdom, or simply providing genuine listening. There are no coincidences in this. It is God showing you that you do not have to fight alone, placing at your side spiritual allies who provide you with strength, direction, and courage to move forward. There is yet another crucial sign, and you may have already noticed. It is the transformation in your mind. As you become closer to God, your mental clarity intensifies, enabling you to perceive things accurately. You recognize that you are not inferior, that you do not deserve abusive treatment, and that you deserve respect and dignity. This inner change is powerful, for no external manipulation can withstand the force of those who finally recognize their own spiritual identity before God. Each of these signs is a concrete manifestation that God has already decreed the end of narcissistic dominance over you. Believe in divine action without waiting for something extraordinary. These small moments are daily confirmation that God is with you, attentive and active, even when no one notices. Believe deeply in this. You already have everything you need to start a powerful transformation in your life. Divine justice is not a distant dream, but a present and active reality, continually working to restore your dignity, hope, and emotional freedom. Trust that the time of suffering has an end in sight, and God, in a subtle and powerful way, is already writing a new story for you. When you finally realize that you are free from the emotional control of someone narcissistic, you feel as if you are facing a profound emptiness. After so much time living under constant manipulation, it is often difficult to recognize who you really are. Perhaps you have become accustomed to seeing yourself through the eyes of that person who continually sought to distort your identity, discrediting your worth and causing you to doubt the importance you truly possess in the eyes of God. We must rebuild our spiritual identity and rediscover ourselves through the eyes of the Creator who has never stopped believing in us. Restoring your spiritual identity is like rebuilding a house devastated by a storm. Each damaged part needs to be repaired with care, patience, and wisdom. Instead of the lies planted by the narcissist, you need to establish eternal truths about your life, that you are loved, precious, and specially chosen by God for a life full of meaning and purpose. Imagine an artist carefully working on a precious sculpture. Each stroke of the chisel is intentional. Each movement reveals a unique beauty. In the same way, God desires to rebuild your life with precision and love. The scars left by the abuse will not disappear immediately, but will be resignified, transformed into signs of your spiritual strength and resistance. God can transform what seemed destroyed into an even more beautiful, resilient, and inspiring masterpiece than before. The first step in rebuilding your spiritual identity is to rediscover your true image before God. To achieve this, you need to replace every negative word spoken repeatedly by the abuser with biblical affirmations about who you are in Christ. If you once saw yourself as fragile, understand today that, in God's eyes, you are deeply loved and worthless. The Bible clearly says that you are a masterpiece from the hands of the Creator, created to perform good works and live fully in His presence. Another essential step is to cultivate a sincere relationship with God daily through prayer and spiritual reading. When you draw closer to God regularly, you begin to realize that your true identity is anchored in Him and not in the distorted opinions or destructive criticisms of someone who has never recognized your true worth. Being closer to God strengthens your conviction about who you are and makes you less susceptible to lies that try to break your heart again. Remember that the power of true forgiveness reinforces your spiritual identity at this crucial time. Such forgiveness does not mean that you need to forget everything you have been through, nor do you have to accept abuse again. But forgiving frees you from the emotional prison created by resentment, allowing God to heal deeply in your innermost wounds. By choosing to forgive, you regain control over your emotions, reaffirming that your inner peace depends solely on God and no longer on the approval or repentance of the abuser. Finally, understand that seeking spiritual support from people who understand your pain can make a significant difference. You don't have to reconstruct what someone else has destroyed on your own. Finding fellow believers who are able to walk alongside you, pray with you, and strengthen your spiritual journey brings not only emotional comfort, but also renewed spiritual strength to move forward. There is a bright future ahead of you, reserved by God especially for you. Your spiritual identity is not lost. It is being carefully restored, renewed, and strengthened by the loving hands of God. Open yourself now to this new spiritual reality, because at this stage you do not walk alone. There is a spiritual community ready to welcome and support you on this transformative journey of liberation and healing. One of the biggest mistakes we make in moments of great emotional suffering is to believe that we need to face everything alone. After having lived through traumatic experiences caused by narcissistic people, isolation may seem like the most comfortable choice. After all, who truly understands the complexity of the pain you silently carry? However, the powerful truth is this: God never intended for you to walk alone. On the contrary, He designed you to live in fellowship, receiving spiritual and emotional support that only a healthy, faith-centered community can provide. Being part of a spiritual community does not only mean attending religious meetings or Sunday services, it goes far beyond that. Being part of a spiritually healthy environment means making deep connections with people who truly understand what you are facing, people who can listen carefully to your story, welcome your pain, and respond with wise words based on truth and empathy. When you meet others who have also walked difficult paths, you quickly understand that your suffering is not unique. You realize that there are others who have faced and won battles similar to yours, and this realization becomes a powerful source of encouragement. A genuine spiritual community provides a safe space to talk openly about your experiences. After all, one of the narcissist's most effective weapons is precisely to silence their victims, making them feel isolated, discredited, and misunderstood. By participating in a community that truly listens, validates, and welcomes your testimony, you break the destructive force of that silence. Each time you express your story and find understanding, some of the emotional weight you carried in silence is relieved. You receive validation, compassion, and renewed strength to move forward. But in addition to the emotional strength provided by understanding and nurturing, the spiritual community also offers powerful spiritual protection. When you unite with others who believe in the same divine truth, you strengthen your spiritual defenses against subtle manipulations and emotional advances from narcissistic people. There is extraordinary spiritual power when people of faith come together in prayer, uniting intentions and purposes to promote liberation, emotional healing, and deep spiritual restoration. The Apostle Paul, in his letters, often emphasized the power of living in communion. He knew from experience that no one wins deep spiritual battles alone. We are social, spiritual beings, created to strengthen each other. Paul clearly states that we are to bear one another's burdens, emphasizing that together we become stronger. Sharing your emotional burden with those around you in prayer, understanding, and genuine love isn't just a healthy choice. It's a wise and spiritual choice that drives your recovery in powerful and lasting ways. Think about how meaningful it is to pray with people who truly understand your situation. When you join with others who believe in the power of prayer, you create an intense spiritual atmosphere that can break deep emotional bonds. Prayers offered collectively strengthen not only you, but also everyone around you. They have the power to ward off negative spiritual influences that continually try to imprison your mind and heart. By praying together with others who have experienced similar situations, you reaffirm daily your trust in divine action, strengthening your faith in a concrete and effective way. In addition to joint prayer, being in community provides the constant opportunity to hear stories of real transformation. People become living examples of hope when they have gone through painful processes and managed to rebuild their spiritual lives. Each testimony shared reinforces your certainty that you can also win. With each victory of another person, their faith in the possibility of deliverance grows even stronger. Another crucial benefit of this community experience is the renewal of your identity in God through healthy relationships. Unlike the narcissist, who tries to manipulate his identity, a healthy spiritual community promotes genuine acceptance, unconditional love, and sincere encouragement. This positive atmosphere slowly repairs the distorted view you may have built about yourself due to the abuse you have suffered, reconstructing your identity from a clear and true spiritual perspective. Engaging with spiritually mature people offers yet another essential benefit: learning. By receiving spiritual wisdom and practical guidance from these connections, you discover effective tools to protect yourself emotionally and spiritually from future narcissistic attacks. Collective support generates not only momentary comfort, but also wisdom and spiritual strategies for you to apply daily, strengthening your journey permanently. A strong and healthy spiritual community is, therefore, a precious gift that God places at your disposal. It is necessary for complete and lasting healing after abuse. There is a powerful spiritual weapon waiting to be used by you, a weapon that turns pain into strength, isolation into communion, and suffering into renewed hope. You no longer have to walk alone. It is time to take that decisive step toward the spiritual community that God has prepared for you. Prayer is much more than a simple religious act or a spiritual routine. It is a powerful tool, essential to protect and restore your mind and heart in the face of the silent strategies of narcissistic abuse. When you pray, you are not just talking into emptiness or repeating memorized words. You are establishing a deep and direct connection with God, strengthening your spiritual and emotional defense against any attempt at manipulation and control. The narcissist frequently attempts to exert internal control over you by shaping your thoughts and emotions. But prayer works in exactly the opposite direction. It strengthens your inner self to resist these destructive emotional onslaughts. By praying, you create a sacred space where the narcissist's lies, manipulation, and constant criticism lose power. You begin to see the divine truth about who you really are, strong, worthy, and loved by God, regardless of the abuser's attempts to convince you otherwise. For your prayer to be effective and transformative, start by establishing specific moments in your day, even if they are brief. Take a few minutes in the morning and evening for a personal and sincere prayer. Talk to God about everything you feel. Don't hide your pain, frustration, or doubts. God desires to hear exactly what is in your heart because emotional honesty strengthens your relationship with Him, allowing for deep emotional healing. Furthermore, make it a consistent habit to pray with specific verses that speak directly to your spiritual identity and divine protection. Memorize and state daily Bible passages that affirm God's love and care for you, such as, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" or "The Lord is my light and my salvation, who will I be afraid of?" Stating these truths in prayer strengthens your mind against any emotional attack, restoring your inner confidence. Another powerful practice is to write specific prayers. Grab a spiritual notebook or journal and record your prayers, concerns, and clear requests to God. Putting your emotions and needs into written words releases some of the emotional pressure built up on you. Furthermore, as you revisit your prayers over time, you will clearly notice how God has been quietly acting, answering requests, and strengthening you step by step. Also include prayers of deliverance, specifically asking God to free you from any negative spiritual influence coming from the narcissist. Clearly ask for emotional protection, mental clarity, and spiritual discernment to recognize and resist attempts at manipulation. Pray for wisdom to set healthy boundaries and courage to face difficult situations with divine trust. Something compelling happens when you invite other trusted people to pray with you. Sharing your battles with fellow believers creates a protective spiritual network, enhancing the power of your prayers. Don't underestimate the spiritual power of this unity. When two or more come together to pray, the spiritual impact is multiplied, bringing healing and deliverance that surpasses human comprehension. Finally, make gratitude a key part of your daily prayer. Recognize all the small victories you've had so far, even seemingly insignificant ones. By expressing gratitude, you strengthen your positive spiritual outlook, preparing yourself emotionally to receive even more liberation and healing. Now is the decisive moment to act with courage and confidence. Prayer is not just a common spiritual practice, but a powerful and transformative spiritual weapon. By praying, you declare your full trust in God, stand against the narcissist's emotional attacks, and strengthen your spiritual identity to resist steadfastly. Don't wait any longer. Start praying today with purpose and absolute confidence, knowing that God has already determined your victory. God did not design your life to be a never-ending cycle of pain, manipulation, and emotional abuse. On the contrary, He has promised full and real deliverance from every destructive influence that tries to steal your peace and dignity. Throughout this reflection, you have clearly realized that although the narcissist tries to control and destroy your self-esteem, God has already decreed an absolute end to this situation. This divine promise is not a distant possibility, but a present and immediate spiritual reality available to you right now. Perhaps you spent a long time waiting for something to change, living in the false hope that the abuser would recognize the suffering they caused. Today, however, you deeply understand that your deliverance no longer depends on the approval or repentance of those who were never interested in your emotional well-being. Your deliverance is guaranteed by the direct action of God, who has already begun a powerful process of spiritual and emotional healing in your life. But full liberation only happens when you take a decisive step of faith and courage. God is calling you right now to act. It is no longer a time for hesitation or doubt. You already have all the tools you need: prayer, strengthening your spiritual identity, the support of a healthy Christian community, and the unshakable assurance that God is by your side, fighting for you. Now is the time to use all of those resources with absolute determination. God knows your entire story, from the moments of deep silence to the inner cries that no one else has heard. He was present in every moment, and now He asks you to trust fully in His justice. He will make the truth clearly prevail in your life, exposing hidden manipulations, restoring your dignity, and bringing true peace to your heart. The emotional control that the narcissist has exerted over you has a God-appointed deadline, and the time has come for you to fully live that liberation. I now extend an invitation to you to take a tangible step forward. Share your experiences in the comments below this video. By sharing your story, you definitively break with the silence imposed by the abuser. You will give strength and hope to many others who still feel trapped in similar situations. Your courage will be a powerful light in the lives of those who seek exactly the kind of liberation you are living right now. In addition, I want to invite you to be part of our spiritual community, where you will receive genuine welcome, understanding, and constant spiritual support. Here, you will no longer need to walk alone. You will find people who understand exactly your pain, who walk together with you toward complete emotional and spiritual healing. Today is the day of your decision. God has already done His part. Now it is your turn to respond with courage and absolute confidence in the transforming power of divine justice. Open your heart, share your experiences, integrate into our spiritual community, and allow God to totally transform your life. The time has come to definitively break with the control of the past. Be strong, act courageously, and trust fully. Your deliverance has already begun. Thanks, and see you in the next video.